Only recently, Hillary has told us that we're getting a twofer. We're getting Bill and we're getting Hillary. And Bill is going to run the economic side of this country. Let's talk a little bit about Bill's history in economics. Bill, in 1994, passed a law called the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994. And the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994 cost the prison system, that is to say the federal prison system, approximately $9.7 billion per year. It cost the state prison system a great deal more. But what it did most was lock up most people who came from communities where crack cocaine was used and where there was violent crime. And it was focused mainly on the black population of the United States of America to keep young black boys off the street. And they did keep young black boys off the street. They put them in jail, in many cases forever. And those young adults had wives and children. And those wives and children were put into the streets. They had no more system of support. Bill decided by 1996 that the welfare rolls were getting too heavy. Part of that was, of course, as a result of putting everybody in jail who was responsible for supporting women and children. That in 1996, for every 100 families in poverty, 68 received cash assistance. That fell to 23 for every 100 in 2014. And in a dozen states, including Arizona, that number is fewer than 10 in 100 people in poverty receiving any cash assistance. It is shocking what Bill Clinton did to the lower and middle classes of this country from an economic point of view. In 1999, Bill passed the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. And with that law, Bill said, and I will read to you his quote, "Today I am pleased to sign into law S-900, the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. This historic legislation will modernize our financial services laws, stimulating greater innovation and competition in the financial services industry. America's consumers, our communities, and the economy will reap the benefits of this act." Indeed, in 2007, 2008, this act and the speculation that it empowered destroyed the entire economy of the United States of America. And we went into the worst recession, the worst economic environment that we have ever experienced since the Great Depression starting in 1929. We have not yet pulled out of that. The employment levels in this country as a percentage of the population are at an all-time low. It is all as a result of our friend Bill Clinton. But towards the end of his administration, the entire job market began to fall apart. And don't forget what the economy began to do in the year 2000, which is really as part of the time that he was empowered to make these kinds of decisions. I think that it would be very difficult now that Hillary has chosen Bill, that the two of them will be able to, even should they want to, bring the economy back. But it really is quite impossible when these two people in the last year or so have received $90 million in speaking engagement fees from companies who are or who will benefit from the status quo. Those things that Bill did in the past, I believe, he still stands by economically, and I think that it would be quite difficult for him, even should he wish to reverse them, to reverse them. But most importantly, he's been paid not to reverse them, and so has Hillary. Well, their foundation has benefited from their connection with corporations. It's also benefited from their close ties with various Arab nations and other nations around the world. It is and has been used very much to pay those supporters of Bill and Hillary in ways that sometimes come back to them economically, but certainly buy them the kinds of support and the kinds of power that they're looking for out in society. It really can't be called a foundation. It really should be called a personal holding company that disperses monies where it's purposeful and provides some form of support for the personal aggrandizement of the two of these people. I mean, I think we're to the point where everybody knows that Goldman Sachs paid her $225,000 per speech for 3 speeches. I'm not sure that I can blame Goldman Sachs for doing that. She also charged another 45 companies a similar amount of money for speeches she gave to them. There's sort of a competition for who is going to hold Hillary in hostage while she's president of the United States if she gets there. And, well, the banks could ask to continue speculating and to not be required to have reserves that prevent them from losing depositors' money and destroying the economy. The military establishment or the military corporate establishment can push for more war and more rights to sell arms throughout the world. And it goes on and on. The oil companies can push for exemptions from environmental laws, as Tyson did in Arkansas when they gave her $100,000 trading commodities. I mean, there are just endless benefits to gain by having Hillary in your pocket. You know, a lot of you have an attitude that Bernie Sanders will not accomplish anything because the Congress will not allow him to. But let's look at what's going on today with President Obama. He is able to control how laws are enforced, and Bernie will be in that same position. So that the banks who are now combination speculative and lending will be watched more carefully under Obama. There's not much interest in it. Under Clinton, there'd be no interest in it. But under Bernie, there'd be a great deal of interest in it. And I believe that if the controls were strong enough, as time goes by, with or without the Congress, the banks would understand and would begin to negotiate arrangements with government whereby they protect the people and they protect their own pots better than under the Obama administration. He won't necessarily get free education from the first moments, but he will eventually get it. The same thing with medical. Much of what's done by the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies are a product of lobbying, a product of paying off people like Hillary Clinton, etc. If Bernie puts a stop to that kind of lobbying and that kind of paying off to Hillary Clinton and publicizes what's going on between these companies and the lawmakers, ultimately there will be a different attitude towards the costs and towards ultimately free medicine for everybody. These things can happen. He may have to do these things slowly, but these things can and will happen. And the concept that we might have a deficit because of it is nonsense. The small amount of deficit that gets put into this country to kick these things off will bring to us taxes that will make the deficit ultimately go away, because we will be more productive, because our people will be more productive. And Bernie can make these things happen. These are not necessarily enormous steps, but he'll take the small steps first, and the small steps will evolve to big steps. And all of you who think that this cannot happen under a liberal, progressive president, it can, it will, it's clear. Look at the energy of this man.
Now, you see, this little bird doesn't know it. Oh,